Good morning, Kahal Kadosh. Today, Tuesday, the 12th day of Kislev, the 6th day of December 2022. Today's special breakfast and class has been graciously sponsored by Joe, Jack, and Bobby Falak. Thank you very much. Le'ilui Nishmat, their beloved mother, Mrs. Molly Falak, Mazal Bat Farida, Aliyah Shalom. Iratzon that to the words of Torah and Berachot, her neshama will have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. So I'd like to speak for a minute or two about the topic that we discussed on Sunday about Yaakov Avinu and the sleeping arrangements that Yaakov Avinu had when he arrived to Har Moriah, etc. So one of the things that we mentioned, that based on Kabbalistic sources, it says that Yaakov Avinu took from the rocks and he put them as a pillow. And we explained that in a Kabbalistic perspective, that means the kavanah, the thought that Ishak Avinu had during the moment of conceiving Yaakov to his wife Rivka, it became activated. So then I received many comments and many suggestions, not much suggestion but comments I would like to say. What about Esav? Didn't Esav and Yaakov were conceived by the same parents? And actually they were conceived simultaneously. Yaakov and Esav were twins. Okay? Different looks, different outcome, different personality, but at the end of the day, they were born literally one after the other. So some of the questions that we received was, so why didn't that affect Esav? So I did not do much research in the holy books, but I'll tell you what I believe that the Yirat Hashem is trying to say. Every person carries the zera of their parents. If you are human, you have something connected to your father, something connected to your mother. You cannot escape that fact.
DNA.
That's it. But the DNA, the Gemara goes even further. Certain looks and certain behaviors and certain type of midot that a person develops are inherited from their parents, like it or not. And our mission is to do the best that we can. If it's something that requires improvement, to work on it. And if it's something that is beautiful, to make sure to stay with us. How many times people tell me, oh, you look like your father. You sound like your mother. Your nose is like your mother. Your eyes is like your father. All this is written in the holy books, by the way. Even the nails, it's written how your nails look and what type of person are you. I'm not going to tell you the source. So you start looking in the Zohar and see, oh, this guy has this type of nail, this type of shape of the head, this type of nose, etc. This is not for us to get involved with. But perhaps we can say that yes, Yaakov and Esav were conceived from the same zera and they were carried by the same mother, but it was also a matter of choice. What choices did Yaakov Avinu do and which choice did Esav do? Perhaps this may answer us a certain question that maybe crossed your mind, maybe did not. But eventually we're going to discuss about the passing of Yaakov and the passing of Esav. Esav, actually, what happened with Esav? He started to argue post-mortem of Yaakov where Yaakov will be buried. The brothers of Yaakov, the sons of Yaakov rather, they wanted Yaakov to be buried in Me'arat HaMachpelah, in Hebron. Esav said, no, I'm the firstborn. I get to pick Me'arat HaMachpelah first. So the sons of Yaakov say to Esav, hold on a minute. Look in last week's Torah portion. The Torah says clearly that Esav sold his birthright. And the Pasuk says, Ba'ibez Esav et HaBechorah. Esav belittled the Bechorah, the right of the firstborn. What does it mean, belittle the facts of being a firstborn? He laughed at the responsibilities that a firstborn needs to have. Because a firstborn, back then, okay, till the sin of the Egel, every firstborn was a Kohen. Kohanim were separated after the sin of the golden calf. Meaning to say, every family had a guaranteed Kohen if your firstborn was a son. When did that change? In the sin of the golden calf. But for a short period of time, from the firstborn plague in Egypt till the sin of the golden calf, every Kohen was the firstborn of the family.
If the firstborn is a girl?
Repeat that again.
If the firstborn is a girl?
Is a girl, so automatically there is no boy Kohen. Okay? Now, so Esav says, why should I carry the responsibilities of a Kohen? I want to go easy. I want to go with the flow. I don't want to be representing the Jewish people. I don't want to be a Kohen. I don't have to deal with the Bet HaMikdash. I don't have to do with Korbanot. This was the mindset of Esav. And that's why the Pasuk says, Ba'ibes Esav. So you know what? Oh, I'm so happy I don't have to do it. So in the meantime, they send Naphtali, right? The son of Yaakov called Naphtali to run back to Egypt to bring the documents of the transfer of the firstborn rights to Yaakov. In the meantime, Hushin, which was deaf, saw that there is a commotion, and what did he do? He executed Esav on the spot. And everybody knows the end of the story. What happened at the end? The head of Esav rolled into Me'arat HaMachpelah, and the body of Esav was taken by his sons. Now, why the head of Esav rolled into Me'arat HaMachpelah? I understand. Hazak Baruch. Why did the head roll into Me'arat HaMachpelah? Because the Torah that Ishaq taught Esav entered into his brain. So there was holiness, technically speaking, in the brain of Esav. The problem was that he did not make a transfer between the brain and the rest of the body. And that's why the Pasuk says about Yaakov. You know what Yaakov Avinu do? All the Torah that he learned and absorbed from Ishaq and all the Midot Tovot and the Yirat Shamayim that Yaakov learned from Rivka, his mother, now it became into practice. It was in the theory. It was in the brain department. Now the mission of Yaakov was to transfer from the brain, from the Midrash to the Ma'aseh, from the intellect into the action. And perhaps this is the answer to many of our members who contacted me via email, WhatsApp, text messages, and I hope that is a satisfactory type of answer. I am comfortable with this answer, and Be'ezat Hashem will continue with the Gemara of today. Baruch Ata Adonai Elohenu Melech HaOlam She'akol Nihiyah B'Barok. The Gemara of today, Masechet Yevamot, discusses one of the most beautiful mitzvot of the Torah, but simultaneously one of the most difficult mitzvot of the Torah to fulfill. Which mitzvah I'm referring to? Kivud Ab Ba'em, the mitzvah of honoring parents. Kaved et avicha ve'et imecha, one of the 10 commandments. A person must have respect, must honor to their parents during the lifetime and after they leave the world. This is what the Halacha writes. The Pelei Yoetz explains something that I believe I may have discussed in the past, that there are 2 levels of honoring parents. One is in the physical way, and one is in the spiritual way. One is when the parents are alive, and one is when the parents are no longer among the living. The Gemara in the tractate known as Kiddushin discusses what does it mean to honor your parents. So many physical actions, to take care of them, to stand up when they come in, not to sit in the chair, to respect them, to honor them, ma'achilo umalbisho, to feed them and to dress them in if necessary, including financial support. All that goes through the physical aspect of life. Okay? Now, obviously, there are many more halachot. I'm only giving you a very superficial Gemara just to understand what the Gemara is referring to. Before we speak afterlife, let's discuss some of the messages of the Gemara. What if a father or a mother says to a son or to a daughter, I want you to desecrate Shabbat? We all know the answer. Not allowed. Ish imo be'aviv tirau, be'et shabbatotai tishmoru. Why in the Ten Commandments, the mitzvah of observing the Shabbat and the mitzvah of honoring parents are next to each other? For the reason of the pasuk that I just mentioned. This pasuk says you have to have awe for your parents and you have to observe the Shabbat. Short answer, that if a father or mother requests from a son or daughter to do something that is against the Torah, like breaking the Shabbat, the mitzvah is not to listen to a parent and to keep observing the Shabbat. Let me clarify this. We're not dealing now with moment of dangers. If God forbid there is a moment or situation of pikuach nefesh means a physical danger to life, you're allowed to desecrate every halacha from the Torah, including Kippur, including Shabbat. But we're not talking an extreme case of physical danger. We're talking about a regular case. Your father tells you, do me a favor, when you finish from the synagogue, go to the bakery and bring me half a dozen of fresh bagels for Kiddush. Kosher. Or you. Obviously, the intentions may be good, but the halacha also says that the way that a child, and when I mean a child, I don't mean a little child only, but it means a son or daughter speak to a parent needs to be in the most respectful way. And that is the reason why, if we look at the Ten Commandments, we find something fascinating. The first 5 commandments are related into my godly connection. Believe in God, don't use God's name in vain, don't commit idolatry, observe the Shabbat, honor your parents, and the other 5 is ben adam lahavero, interpersonal relationship. Don't steal, don't kill, don't kidnap, etc. And the question someone will ask is, if that's the case, why do you put the mitzvah of honoring parents in the same column of the mitzvah of godly relationship? I believe that the obvious answer is that honoring a parent is honoring Hashem. Because at the end of the day, in English people say, you don't choose family. Okay? You can choose family until you get married. You decide, do I want to marry into this family or not? But whoever you were born from, your parents, you have no choice. This is who your parents are. Excuse me. This is who your parents are, and our mission is to make the best of the relationship with respect, with awe, with honor, etc. Now, what happens after they leave the world? So the mitzvah of honoring a parent continues, but in a whole different dimension that during the lifetime that they were alive together with a son or daughter. And that's what the Puede says. It says that once a person leaves the world, the neshama understands one language, the language of ruhaniyut. What does it mean, the language of ruhaniyut? The language of spirituality. That's why a person says the Kaddish, a person observes the laws of Shiva. You see, today we have a sponsorship of a class and breakfast The neshama doesn't need the food. The neshama is happy with the Torah class. But why people donate the Sa'udah? Because the moment that we say berachot, le'ilui nishmat someone, there is a direct benefit to that neshama. And that's why it's called le'ilui nishmat, for the elevation of the soul. We need to understand one thing. The person comes into the world, the person leaves the world. Irrelevant of how many years a person lives, as long as the person is alive, the person can make direct deposit into the savings account, as we learn on Sunday in the Musar. You make mitzvot, you make ma'asim tovim, you give tzedakah, you make your own account. You build your own account. But what happens when the person, God forbid, leaves the world? Guess what? That account remains dormant. There is no action in that account in Shamayim unless we, the descendants and the relatives of the Niftar, make deposits into that account. And that's why people do Sa'udah le'ilui nishmat. And people do a Kiddush le'ilui nishmat. And people donate Sefarim le'ilui nishmat. And people sponsor a Kolel learning le'ilui nishmat. And people give charity le'ilui nishmat. Why people do all that? Because people understand that the more I do for that particular neshama, for that particular relative, guess what? It's like you go to the airport to fly, and you have an economy class ticket, and even in economy today, you have different madrigot. Economy middle seat, economy window seat, economy aisle, preferred seat, extra legroom, premium economy, economy plus. Every airline has a different shtick in how they generate more income and profits, etc. Which we understand that. The more comfortable the seat, may be a bit costlier. But imagine yourself that suddenly they tell you, oh, Mr. So-and-so, you have an upgrade. You are promoted to business class, let's say. Nice, easy upgrade, free. How did that upgrade happen? So it says the Pelei Yoez, that upgrade to the neshama happens because the descendants made mitzvot and ma'asim tovim, especially in the day of the Yortzeit. Let me tell you two things. First of all, in the first year of passing of the neshama, every day the neshama is audited. Why? Because since there is Shiva observance, there is Berachot, there is Ereyat, there is Mishnayot, there is Torah learning, there are Kaddish for a whole year. So every day, the neshama gets an upgrade. Okay, move on to the second floor, move on to the third floor, move on to the 10th floor. Because let's be honest, if no one, God forbid, does anything for a neshama, what do you think it happens to that neshama? That neshama stays in the level whatever they invested during their lifetime. And we don't have an access to that account to say, I go to my bank account online and I know what's going on. But if you don't go, or you have no access to your account, you will not be able to see what's doing. Guess what? No one in this physical world has access to the account in Shamayim. Many times, a person believes that they have a nice balance in Shamayim, and then suddenly, to their surprise, half of the balance is gone. Why? Because they spoke Lashon Hara about another person, or because they activated kas, anger, or because they embarrassed someone, so they lost all their investment. Can you imagine, God forbid? But that's what's written in the holy books, that certain actions that a person does, that their actions, especially of hurting or causing suffering to other people, there is a trade-in in Shamayim. We're going to take your mitzvot to their account, and we're going to give you their averot to your account. Haz v'shalom. But that's what's written in the holy books. Now, goes further. So the first year of passing, everybody does a lot for the neshama. Beautiful. But after the year of passing, the neshama has an opportunity to climb higher and higher, close to the Kiseh HaKavod, close to the holy throne of Hashem. And I say the following: no human being has access to this type of information. We all hope and pray that our parents and previous generations, they are in a very comfortable position in Gan Eden. That's our hope and pray. But even to do that, they need to have some type of connection with Hashem, number one. So there are 2 days in the year that the neshama qualifies for an upgrade. One day is the day of the Yortzeit. And according to many opinions, the week of the Yortzeit. That's why according to the Sephardic tradition, we start saying the Kaddish, right? Shabbat before the Yortzeit. And the Shabbat before, the son or son-in-law goes up to the Sefer, they do the Ashkavah, they may donate the Sa'udah or a Kiddush, whatever they do, Le'ilui Nishmat. Why people do that? Because that's an opportunity that the neshama is craving for. The neshama is looking forward to say, you know what? I'm going to pack my bags because I know that an upgrade is coming. I want to be ready when that spiritual upgrade arrives. Or the day of Yom Kippur. The day of Kippur. Some synagogues have the custom of making hashkavot on the night of Kippur of their beloved relatives. So we used to do it here, and it became so long that it was creating a halachic problem and a community challenge that prayers in the night of Kippur took an extra hour. So we came up with a strategy that I do a communal hashkavah for men, a communal hashkavah for ladies, and then we give like a minute of silence. So everybody in their mind can think of the parents, grandparents, relatives, etc. That's what brought down in the Mahzorim. But where do we learn such a concept of Kippur? There is a pasuk in the Mahzor that says, Sifrei Hayim Umetim Lefanecha Hem Niftahim. The book of the living and the book of the dead are open in front of you. I understand the book of the living, because Kippur will determine our year. But why you need to open the book of the dead? Short answer, because based on our spiritual performance throughout the year, our good behavior, it gives an upgrade to the neshama of our parents. And that's why we make the ashkavah. And that's why the halacha says, on the other hand, don't make too many hashkavot. In the first year of passing, to make hashkavah when you go up to the Sefer, etc. If you have a simcha to make hashkavah that we did the other day, it's appropriate. Why? The Zohar Kadosh writes, I believe in Pirashat Pinchas, that it says that whenever there is a simcha to the family, when I mean a simcha, I mean a spiritual celebration. For example, a wedding, milah, pidyon ben, bar mitzvah, etc. So guess what? Shammai gives a special permit to the neshamot. And I don't remember how many generations are, I believe 2 or 3 generations, that they come down to celebrate with the family. Why such a gift is given to this neshamot? The short answer is as follows. A neshama comes down to the world, the neshama leaves the world. Once the neshama leaves the world, they see the world with a different set of eyes. What does it mean? We see the world with a limited vision and understanding that we have. We are humans, we have limitations. But once the neshama, it's Be'ezat Hashem, closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they look at the world from a mostly, I would like to say this, spiritual perspective. And you know what is the biggest concerns of the neshamot is or are? That their descendants will continue in the ways of Hashem. So when they see that a grandson does the milah to his son, that means his deceased person's great-grandson, there is a tremendous amount of simcha, that the link of Judaism, so to speak, didn't stop with one generation. It actually continues.
How do we honor it? Do we do Kaddish?
Repeat that again?
Do we do the Kaddish this day? How do we honor the...
You do the Ashkava. That's it. No need to say Kaddish. No, Kaddish only in the Yortzeit. That's it. You do the Ashkava because, and even I tell you one thing, the Ashkava is made usually in the Shabbat Hatan, okay, or in the Aliyah for the Sefer. But I say the following: what I just said, this, it definitely happens. That's what the Zohar Kadosh writes. It doesn't mean that you must do the Ashkava. If you didn't do the Ashkava, not a big deal. But one thing Rabbeinu Hari says, after the year is gone, the year of Avelut, the year of mourning is finished, don't do too many Ashkavot, because then you're disturbing the Neshama. You're creating false hope. Oh, my name is being mentioned. And that's what Rabbeinu Hari says also, that when you make a Ashkava, don't exaggerate about the person. When you make a eulogy, it says in the Midrash of Kohelet, Shlomo HaMelech, that when there is a eulogy, God sends two malachim. Listen to the speech given at the eulogy. And based on that speech, Shamayim judges the person, which is dangerous. Why? Because if you exaggerate, God forbid, or you say something that is halachically a problem. I remember one time, many years ago, we went to a funeral of someone, and the grandson requested permission from his rabbi to say a few words in honor of the relative that passed away. And in the middle of the speech, the grandson says, "We will miss the Thanksgiving dinner in Olive Garden restaurant." We're not debating Thanksgiving today. That's gone. But when you mention publicly Thanksgiving dinner in a non-kosher restaurant, what do you think it does to the neshama?
Possibly.
Hazaku Baruch. And that's why we have a rule. Don't speak about people which are gone from the world. Don't. You can say a couple of nice things, but don't exaggerate, and for sure, don't say negative or derogatory comments. Because the moment that that happens, we are activating prosecution to the neshama. So with all that being said, now we understand what the Pelei Yoel says, that after a parent is gone from the world, there is the mitzvah of kivud av ba'em. Because your father or mother, whoever it may be, they are waiting for our mitzvot. They are waiting for our ma'asim tovim, etc. And if this is today's class, I can say dayenu. I have in front of me the halachot from Hacham Rabbi Yosef that discuss at length the mitzvah of kivud av ba'em. And the halakha talks about disagreements. What happens if your father wants you to do something and you don't want to do it? So there are certain scenarios that the Torah says, the Gemara says clearly, that you don't listen. So somebody asked me this question a while back. Marrying someone and your parents don't agree with that marriage, are you allowed to marry the person or not? It's a very touchy subject because you're dealing with parents, son or daughter, and building their life. So if I have to say the blank statement is as follows. Rule number one, that parents and children should work together when it comes to their marriage. Meaning Halakha says, number one, the idea will be, and we all agree, that if parent wants to walk happy to the marriage of their son or daughter, correct? But regretfully, I had scenarios in the past that there were disagreements. And in some cases, I have to take a step back. Says, I'm not going to perform this marriage ceremony. I see the parents' point of view. It makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I must say that no one should derive practical lessons from this final statement. But the Halakha says, interesting enough, that if the person is of a certain age, okay, and from a kosher background, is kasher, and the person has a good name, a good reputation. I'll tell you one case, that the parents wanted the daughter to marry only someone that is a millionaire. Have you heard of this before?
Yeah.
It's challenging. It doesn't matter that you're a good person, doesn't matter that you're a hard-working person, doesn't matter that you have no addictions, doesn't matter that you don't have vices, doesn't matter that whatever. It matters the account. The Gedolim already said that when marriage is involved and surrounded with money, and that's the main qualification that a person has, that marriage doesn't have a lot of beracha. So interesting enough, the ruling of Rabbi Yosef says that in certain scenarios, a son or daughter is allowed to marry without the permission of the parents. We're not talking about 18, 20, 21 years old. We're talking about 30, 37, 38, 39, 40. You follow me? But I repeat, don't derive practical lesson from this class today. The last segment, the other stuff you can definitely learn and apply. But I want you to know that there is such halakha. That there is such halakha. Many times, the parents become the roadblock for the marriage of the children. They decide. Parents have a mission to educate, to give an orientation, and to suggest. But it comes to a point that parents need to understand that the way they were raised, probably, I don't want to say some of you, but probably our grandparents, they married whoever the grandfather said to marry, without too many questions being asked. I believe that we are all in the same boat. And people used to get married younger. Your grandparents will tell your father, okay, I have a good girl for you. Go ahead. Propose. And Baruch Hashem, the marriages lasted for a lifetime, Baruch Hashem, and a lot of good things did happen. But regretfully, we live in a different times. We live in a different generation. People have their own mind. People have their own understanding. People have their own point of view. Many times society, which is a given, influences our lives. Many times the peers, the friends influence our life. And many times people listen more to the friends than to the parents. So I'll say the following. Each case needs to be handled by its own particular situation. And if, God forbid, there is a scenario in which parents and son or daughter are not on the same page concerning their soulmate, so I believe, and I'm telling you this now from professional experience, that they need to call in the reinforcements. Meaning to say, to make a she'elat hacham, to involve a rabbi that has understanding, that has knowledge. I'm not looking for new customers, believe me. I'm happy with what I have, Baruch Hashem. But individuals who knows both parties, and I have a few cases in the past that we needed to resort to this lifeline in order to help the couple and the parents make a decision. And sometimes the decision was made, this is not for you. The decision was made, this is the right thing for you to do. And the decision was made to the parents, take a step back. So there are all types of answers, all types of scenarios, and every case, every she'elah, every question must be dealt with accordingly. And that's the purpose, I believe, of today's class. But just to finish it with something positive. Irrelevant of agreement or disagreement, the Halakha clearly writes that insulting or mistreating or belittling or screaming to a parent, there is no permission whatsoever. Whatsoever. The Halakha does deal also with scenarios that the parents are not in the right mindset. God forbid, they may have Alzheimer's, or they may have dementia, or they may have different scenarios. The Halakha is clear. Sometimes you have to be firm. Sometimes you have to be firm. Because if you're going to let them make certain decisions and they are affected by these kind of scenarios, it could be a disaster. I remember many years ago that it was a senior citizen that started to give large gifts of money to people. And I saw this. And I approached one of the sons. They were very thankful. They started to give. And people regretfully took advantage to a certain extent. So when I saw that, first I heard, but I couldn't get too far because I never saw it. I saw it, then I called the son, and I said to them, listen, I heard, but Baruch Hashem, God opened up my eyes, and this is what's going on. You need to come down, you need to put a guardian, you need to put someone to manage the finances. Otherwise, whatever he or she has is going to be gone in no time. That's also part of honoring parents. Making sure that the parents are okay at all levels. Okay, my good friends? We say to everybody, Shavua Tov Mevorach, Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen Be'amen. Have a great day, everybody.